2 years ago, when I was 17 years old, I had this English teacher that everybody loved because he was actually quite funny. But there was one thing that he did that I absolutely hated. We'd finish reading a poem or a chapter in a book, and then he'd write down a statement on the board about what we'd just read. Then he would ask us to write a paragraph in our books evaluating this statement, telling us whether we agree or disagree and why. Now that's not too bad, but then he would pick 3 people at random to read their paragraph out loud for the whole class to hear. And when it came to poetry, this was my worst nightmare, because don't get me wrong, some poems are actually pretty good, but a lot of them to me just made no sense whatsoever. All I'm saying is it would make more sense if the poem was written by a Down syndrome rhinoceros ramming into a keyboard while snorting crack. So when it was my turn to read my paragraph, I just made it up on the spot and said whatever came to my mind. The teacher wasn't very impressed, but he was going bald anyway, so joke's on him. Level 0. Level 1. Foreign exchange student. You can speak English well enough to have a basic conversation, but little things still confuse you. For example, I live in Northern England, which means if I go around saying hello to people, they might reply with, "You right?" And when I respond with, "Yes, I'm alright, thank you," they look at me as if I'm the weirdo. I answered your question, you asked me if I was alright. It turns out that "you're right" means hello somehow, and while that's confusing, you still have to learn English because we kind of colonised half the world. Apologies. Level 2. Hillbillies. Most people on this level are actually native English speakers. If I go down to the pub and find a guy called Paul and ask him how his day's going, he'll be able to answer me pretty easily. But if I ask him what his favourite Shakespeare play is, he'll reply with, "What, are you some kind of fairy?" Because he's on level 2, and to him, reading English literature is equivalent to being a homosexual. Typically, most non-native English speakers completely skip level 2 and move straight to level 3, Average Joe. At this level, you're able to read books in English and understand basic literary devices like personification and metaphors, and even make a few jokes and understand them. Most people are on this level because beyond it, English sort of becomes more of an art rather than a language. Level 4, Academic. At this level, you learn specific terminology like rhetoric, pragmatics, and sociolinguistics, and you're now able to understand Jordan Peterson when he speaks. If you're on this level, you probably had to write many essays in school, so you learn how to say many big words in order to sound smarter than you actually are. But why say many big word when short word do same thing? Level 5, Advanced English Teacher. If you're on this level, you probably study English for the sake of studying English. Some people might enjoy dissecting poems and analysing prose, but is it really necessary to force kids to learn it in school? Level 6, Linguistic Connoisseur. You can now dissect complex texts, engage in sophisticated literary criticism, and appreciate the finer points of language variation and evolution. Most people on this level can write academic papers on linguistics and are actively working within academia. You may have a ridiculously high IQ, but you also have a ridiculously low salary. I respect you, but I don't want to end up like you. Level 7, Grandmaster. At this point, the language is merely an extension of your intellect and creativity. So much so that you're now inventing new words and phrases because that's how influential your work is. For example, William Shakespeare is credited with coining over 1,700 words, such as assassination, fashionable, and waffle stomp. Click this video if you want to see more, and don't forget to piss off. That was actually a hard hit.